This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. I'm Yevgeny Jansen. The show is always live and is broadcast from our studios here in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube right now, where the show is always available on demand on our YouTube channel a little bit later. Now today we look at wage negotiations in the gold sector after unions rejected the final offer from 4 major mining companies. Also, the Springboks World Cup campaign has been thrown into disarray following a string of defeats and allegations now that black players are being sidelined. We ask you the question today: do you think black players are being sidelined in the Springbok team? At SABC Newsroom is where you send us your response to this question. We'll run it in the show a little bit later and tomorrow. The European Union is facing a massive migrants crisis. We'll talk to Amnesty International on Skype about this a little bit later. August is donor month, organ donor month that is, in South Africa. We look at the severe shortages, and we close today with the winners of the Destiny Child reality gospel show who are visiting South Africa right now. But first, let's get the day's news from Anindo Mal.
Good morning, I'm Anindo Mal. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. The South African Rugby Union has rejected claims of a split in the World Club squad because of alleged racism. This after Kusatu claimed 5 black Springboks had approached the federation to take up issues such as being sidelined in matches. Kusatu says 2 white Springboks are supporting their black counterparts, saying not enough is being done to transform the team. We will be talking to Kusatu's Tony Ehrenreich about the claims on the show in a few minutes' time to get the latest. Yesterday, Ehrenreich had this to say about the matter.
So there's clearly a lot of concerns about just what is driving the decision of the coaching staff and the management staff at South African Rugby at this stage.
Today, the Western Cape High Court is expected to hear an application by the City of Cape Town against SANRAL's proposed tolling of parts of the N1 and N2. About 180 kilometers of highway will be tolled should the Winelands Toll Highway project go ahead. The city says it's concerned about the financial impact on the poor, but SANRAL says the project will benefit road users. The arguments are expected to stretch over a number of days. The Fuel Retailers Association says it will have a better picture of the fuel shortage in Gauteng by noon today. Pumps at some filling stations in the province have run dry after a Durban refinery shut down due to unplanned maintenance. The deadly attack at a Mali hotel is believed to be the work of an organization with ties to an Al-Qaeda-linked group. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack that led to the death of more than 12 people. One South African who was associated with a UN mission was killed in the incident. In Zimbabwe, wildlife authorities have partially lifted restrictions on big game hunting imposed earlier this month. This after an international outcry of the killing of Cecil, the lion. Meanwhile, Cecil's death was further lamented during World Lion Day yesterday. The United States situation in Ferguson, Missouri still seems to be tense. The St. Louis County, which incorporates the area, has declared a state of emergency after protests marking the 1-year anniversary of Michael Brown's fatal shooting turned violent. Remember, you can find all of those stories on our Newsroom Facebook page. Just search for SABC Newsroom. You can also follow us on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. Eben, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janine. Now, South Africa's World Cup rugby campaign has been thrown into disarray. This following a string of defeats. 5 black players now have approached Labour Federation Kusatu about being sidelined and a general lack of opportunities within the national side for them. The 5 have not been named, but the Labour Federation said that 2 white Springboks have also joined the chorus of unhappiness about transformation in the side. The South African Rugby Union released a statement this morning slamming Kusatu and rejecting the claims out of hand. Now, I'm joined on the line by Kusatu's Provincial Secretary in the Western Cape, Tony Ehrenreich. Good morning, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Tony, just give us the details about the unhappiness that these black players have with the treatment that they receive within the national setup.
Well, I think that generally the country is concerned. On Saturday, 2 black players were part of the starting lineup, so that already represents a serious question mark. But let me just set the record straight. It's not 5 black players. What we have made very clear is that we've been approached by both black and white players to help to assist in the matter about transformation within the rugby team and within the rugby camp. What clearly is an ongoing problem about a lack of appreciation of what we should be doing in South Africa seems to be SARU's greatest weakness. SARU's now put out a statement rejecting what we say, instead of acknowledging that it's not just Kusatu, but it's a number of commentators across the country raising the fundamental issue about transformation. In 1995, we had 1 black player. Now we have 2. What is going to happen in the World Cup team, we don't know, but there clearly is a need to ensure that there's urgent action taken. But the SARU attitude, I suppose, is best displayed by them celebrating a 1960s tour of Argentina to South Africa and to Zimbabwe. Clearly a tour that was designed to undermine the struggle against apartheid and to reinforce apartheid values within the society and the world then. So there clearly needs to be a hard look at what we do in transformation. And while the players are a big part of it, it's a general trend within SARU that's not sensitive to what it is we agree to as a society when we said we were going to build a nation that respects all of our histories and all of our ambitions for the future. And that's the fundamental question that confronts SARU.
Tony, the meeting that we read about in the press that is scheduled for the group, as you now pointed out, the group of players who are unhappy with the treatment within the national side. How is this going to proceed? Is it going to happen this week?
Well, as Kusatu, we're going to be raising the issues along with a number of other organizations and individuals involved in rugby who have been concerned. So there's got to be a discussion with SARU on this. There's got to be an appreciation that includes the leadership of SARU and the sports minister. The sports minister is way too quiet on this issue. We need to, as a country, ensure that we have a team that the whole country can get behind. This is not a Transvaal Jikskei Span. This is the national rugby team that belongs to all South Africans, and all South Africans have a vested interest in it and want to see the Springbok team doing well. But when you have an overwhelming white team running onto the field in the face of a season where clearly the best team in South Africa was the most mixed team in the form of the Stormers, and many of the black players were the form players of the year, we can't have a circumstance where you have a captain who's been off for months and who hasn't been playing himself back into the team is allowed just to walk into the team. Clearly there seems to be a gathering of Heineke Meyer's favorites and some racist Boer cabal within rugby. It's not about ensuring that we objectively look at the players and we give them the game time that they deserve on the basis of their performance thus far this year.
Now, Tony, the South African Rugby Union have rejected these claims out of hand. What do you make of this reaction?
Well, I'm not surprised that they rejected the claim. But the reality that the South African population looks at is that in 1995 we had 1 black player. In all of the other years that we've gone along, we had a sprinkling of black players. This year, going into the World Cup, we have a team that runs on with 2 black players, and one of them is not even South African born. So clearly, what else would SARU say when they failed in the transformation objectives that were set to them as the leadership of South African rugby? And this is not their fiefdom any longer, like the Boer Brigade used to run rugby. This is a national sport, one we all support, and one that our country puts a lot of money into and want to see its returns for all South Africans. So SARU's leadership has failed in respect of providing us that direction, and they haven't thought about the transformation that's aspired to by all of its people. So we're not surprised that they wouldn't reject the allegations. What we think we've got to do as all South Africans is start a conversation on the hard issues sooner than later. If they're still in denial about the fact that we have a real weakness in transformation, then this must point the finger to their prepaid what must be a national team that represents national interests. And all the more reason for the minister to step in urgently, and to help us all to contribute constructively to find a solution before we go into the World Cup.
Tony, I thank you for joining us this morning. That's Tony Ehrenreich, who's the Provincial Secretary of Kusatu in the Western Cape. He's just pointed out to us that it's not 5 black players that came to COSATU. It's a group that includes all kinds of players, all players from all race groups, rather, in the national setup that are concerned with the levels of transformation. Let's just take a look at some of your views on this emotive issue that's been doing the rounds on social media for the last 24 hours. Jason Smith says, I'm a bit confused. All-white Bok team, please explain, he says to COSATU. Ronald Mokanoere says, 7 Springbok players approached COSATU about black players being given less time because of race. 2 of the players are white. Ronald, it's a group of players. It's a mixed group. Emil Jung says, I agree, the Springboks are in desperate need of transformation in more ways than just the obvious. COSATU can also get involved, says Emil. Then Ben Karpinski says, been trying to avoid all things Springboks until tomorrow, but now I see Springbok and COSATU in the same sentence. Oh dear, he says. Of course, our question of the day, before you go, is, do you think, or what do you think, are Springbok, black Springboks, do you think black players are being sidelined in the Springbok team? That's the question that we ask you. We'll play it out tomorrow and we'll try and get some former Springboks into the studio to come and talk about this issue. Of course, a big issue that's facing South Africa right now is the gold sector, and it's in for a long, drawn-out set of wage negotiations after all of the unions rejected the final wage offer from 4 major mining companies. Negotiating on behalf of gold producers, the Chamber of Mines offered an increase of up to 17%. The 2 biggest unions, AMCU and the NUM, are demanding raises of between 70 and over 100%. The deadlock comes at a time when South African mines are going through crises that could have devastating effects on the economy as a whole. President Jacob Zuma has also acknowledged that the South African mining industry is facing a crisis. Mining companies have already issued 11,000 retrenchment notices to employees, a move that has been slammed by the unions. Employers have cited labour unrest and low commodity prices for having to let masses of workers go. Mining houses are going ahead with retrenchments in spite of appeals from government and the ruling ANC. Now, our very own economic reporter, Mbongeni Mutwa, joins us in studio this morning to talk about these issues. Good morning, Mbongeni. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Just give me your reaction on the latest rejection of this 17% offer.
Well, first of all, I think we must make it clear that the rejection of the offer is not a surprise, and it doesn't mean that the negotiations are deadlocked as such. Because when you say negotiations are deadlocked, it means the negotiations have been exhausted, and that's when parties declare dispute, they go to the CCMA to try and intervene, and failing which the CCMA then issues a strike certificate for the unions to strike if they want. So also we are halfway through the negotiation process, and negotiations are a process, and especially in mining, negotiations are a long, drawn-out process. So we are only halfway through. We'll only know exactly where we stand in terms of whether there's going to be an agreement or a strike, maybe in a month's time or so.
How do you see the next month then proceed?
I think we're going to see more or less of the same, unions trying to extract as much as they possibly can from the employers under the circumstances. So the rejection of the offer that we saw last week is part of that. Interestingly, because of the tough economic reality that the industry is facing, 3 of the unions rejected the offer mainly on technical grounds, that, you know, the way that it's structured, that it's a cash payout, it doesn't go into the basic salaries and so on. Of course, they were also unhappy with Harmony only increasing their offer by 50 rands to 500 rands, which is half of what the other big mining companies are offering at this stage.
The question that a lot of South Africans are asking today is that, are these unions, the union bosses, out of touch with what's happening in the South African economy? because they continue to ask, even in some cases, over 100% increases, which is unheard of anywhere in the world, with the backstory being retrenchments, thousands and thousands of retrenchments. And it's not just in the mining sector that we see retrenchments happening.
I think the unions and the union leaders are very much aware of the reality, the economic reality that we're all facing in the country and that the industry is facing. But traditionally, unions will always start negotiations with very high wage demands. It happens across the board. It's normal in South Africa. And then you get into negotiations and, you know, as the negotiations proceed, people start to lower their demands and so on. I mean, for instance, when we started negotiations, NUM was demanding the doubling of salaries to 10,500 rands.
Yeah.
AMCU is coming with their 12,500 a month. And even the other unions, OASA and Solidarity, they were demanding 15%, whatever. But 2 weeks later, we saw what happened with that small mine, Gold Main Reef, workers there saying that this company is small, is struggling, it doesn't have a good future. They're offering us 1,000 rands. We want to take it. They went and demanded that the union sign, and that was signed. So things changed. Now, no one is talking about 10,500 anymore. Of course, AMCU is still sticking to a 12,500, but people are now talking about or entertaining 1,000 rand increase. So it shows that we can't say they are really unreasonable as such.
2 years ago, or more than 2 years ago, we saw what happened in the platinum sector, and massive retrenchments followed. Families were decimated on the platinum belt. Do you foresee the similar kind of thing happening in the gold sector if matters continue down this road?
It's unlikely that we're going to see a similar situation like that that happened in platinum, because the situation here is not exactly the same. What we saw in the platinum belt, you had AMCU having grown and became the dominant union there. That was their strike. Here you've got 4 unions. Officially, the NUM is the majority union here in gold. AMCU is disputing that, of course, but there is no clear and one dominant union that you can just do as it pleases. But also, there is still a big question mark as to whether workers in the gold industry have what is called strike appetite. So that remains to be seen.
Now, Mungeni, the President acknowledged last week, he said that it is clear that mining in South Africa is in a crisis. Low commodity prices, unrest, amidst other fears. What is the way out of this crisis for us, and how do you get the likes of the AMCUs and the NUMs and the Chamber of Commerce, or the Chamber of Mines rather, to get around the table and understand that there's a greater good, a picture of the entire South African economy that they need to take into consideration?
I think wage negotiations are wage negotiations, and they are that. They are negotiations about wages. There is no crisis around the negotiations. Negotiations have to happen, even if, no matter how the state of the economy or the industry and so on. So negotiations are happening and they are proceeding in a normal fashion. So there's no crisis about that.
Yeah.
The industry is facing a big challenge, and the big challenge is mainly the fall in the demand of gold from China especially. So I don't think anyone here can do anything about that. So it's up to the government working with the industry to try and look at alternatives and, basically to see what can be done to make sure that the industry doesn't collapse. Gold has been a declining industry anyways over the past 2 decades or so in South Africa. So you need long-term strategies must be developed for the industry to make sure that it doesn't disappear.
Sustainability is the buzzword that they're talking about. Mngweni, thanks for joining us today, giving us your insights into an issue that's concerning a lot of South Africans, and it's nice to have a different view. He says it's only wage negotiations that's going on, and this kind of rhetoric is what you can expect. Thank you for joining us. Mngweni Mutwa, our very own economics reporter, talking about threats of strike action and wage negotiations within the gold sector here in South Africa. Now, there you have our picture of the day, and that one comes in from Eli Rosenberg. Now, of course, it's a year on from Ferguson, and the in quote says, "I didn't do anything. I'm 12. Girl detained as multiple people were just arrested in Ferguson." Talks about bottles being thrown, general unhappiness. A couple of clergymen were also arrested during this, well, they called it a march yesterday. Let's move on and take a look at the front pages from around the globe now. We start in Europe. The Times says officials on the Greek islands have chartered special boats to remove a huge influx of migrants in recent days, blaming Athens for criminal neglect in its ability to deal with the crisis. Moving on to the USA, the USA Today reports that St. Louis County Executive Steve Stenger declared a state of emergency earlier yesterday after Ferguson protests turned violent Sunday night following the anniversary of the fatal shooting of Michael Brown by a police officer. Finally, in China, the South China Morning Post, authorities say the number of people killed by Typhoon Sodolo in China rose to 21 yesterday, with 5 more people missing. Let's take a look now at what's happening around the country today. We start here in Johannesburg, where former gospel DJ Donald Sebolai will continue to testify in his murder trial in the High Court sitting in Palm Ridge. Sebolai is on trial for the murder of his girlfriend, Dolly Chabalala. Then, in Durban, 5 people were arrested in connection with 2 murders at the Kwamashu Hostel last year. They are expected to appear in the Ntuzuma Magistrates Court. And in Cape Town, an anticipated battle between the city of Cape Town and SANRAL is set to take place in the Western Cape High Court over proposed tolling in the Western Cape, well, sections of the N1 and N2 in the province there. Now, a pyrotechnic artwork by Kai Guojiang called Sky Ladder created a spectacular show. Kai is a Chinese contemporary artist currently living in New York City and is best known for using gunpowder in his spectacular works. This one is called Sky Ladder and it's absolutely spectacular. Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. August is Organ Donor Month, and South Africans are urged to register as proud organ donors during the month of August. Statistics from the South African Organ Donor Foundation indicate that there are about 4,300 South Africans awaiting life-saving organs and cornea transplant, and this number is ever increasing. Many patients in need of life-saving transplants also have to wait many years longer, or sadly do not receive an organ transplant in time at all. The Executive Director of the South African Organ Donor Foundation, Samantha Nichols, joins us in our studio in Cape Town this morning. Good morning to you, Samantha. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for inviting me onto the show.
Tell us about the state of organ donating in South Africa. Are we experiencing a chronic shortage?
Absolutely. I think most countries would say, even with a rate of organ donation in some countries, that there was simply never enough organs available or tissue available in the country. But currently 4,300 adults and children are awaiting transplants, and less than 600 transplants are performed. So there really is a dire need for more people to become organ donors.
What do statistics reveal about the number of patients awaiting life-saving transplants?
Well, as I mentioned, 4,300 adults and children are awaiting solid organ transplants. So that would be the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys and pancreas, as well as the corneas. And as I mentioned, less than 600 transplants are performed each year. So you can see there's a massive gap. We also know that thousands more could potentially qualify for a transplant. But in the state sector, in the government sector, there are only a limited amount of facilities available for patients on dialysis. So dialysis treatment replaces that of your kidney function, and we know that many patients are sent home to die because there's simply not enough facilities available in the state sector.
How does one become an organ donor? And I think some people don't know that you can donate organs and stay alive, I suppose.
Absolutely. Well, two scenarios. Obviously, if you would like to be a living donor, we encourage that, but that normally is between relatives, family members, friends, because of the suitability and the compatibility. And a part of your liver can also be donated while you're alive because the liver regenerates. But we encourage people, obviously, to sign up as organ donors when they die one day. And it's so simple. Many people think it's so complicated. There's medical tests that need to be done. Nothing like that. Actually, all you need to do is simply sign up on our website or call our toll-free line, and we will assist you. We'll send you an information pack, and very importantly, discuss the decision with your family, because ultimately your family needs to give consent at the time of your death.
Is there negative stigma in South Africa and maybe even the rest of the continent around organ donation?
Well, yes and no. There are a lot of people that when we speak to them say, I've always wanted to do this. I just didn't know how. I didn't take the next step. So there are a lot of South Africans that are very encouraged and want to become organ donors. But obviously there are a large population who don't understand the concept of organ donation. It's only when their loved ones are affected that they really understand what organ donation is. So we need a lot of education, especially in the African sort of grassroots level, because we know people don't really understand organ donation there. But we need a lot more resources and a lot more human and financial resources to get to this community of people, and we're currently working on that.
Tell us about this month, Organ Donation Month, of course, and then the type of campaigns that you guys are busy with to try and change the perceptions around the issues of organ donation.
Well, the 1st of August was kicked off with a fantastic organ and tissue donor endowment held by the Open Eye Foundation in Soweto, which was really fantastic. So really getting the traditional healers, the cultural leaders, and the community leaders involved and educated on the subject. Throughout the month, we have a lot of media exposure, and we encourage people to sign up, as well as events. We have tribute services for donor families, and very importantly, we run online social media marketing campaigns. So we find that a lot of people are signing up via social media platforms. It's a very hot spot for us at the moment, and so we're really targeting that to encourage people to sign up as organ donors.
Some people believe that if you're a little bit older, there's no use in you and you're donating your organs because you've lived for so long and your organs might be a bit well used. How do you view that, and what advice do you give to people?
We encourage everyone to sign up, literally every single person. Remember, if you're an elderly person signing up as an organ donor, the medical professionals will determine at the time of your death if your organs can be used. But by you signing up, you're setting an example to your family, to the youth in your family, in your community. So we encourage every single person. Generally, the cutoff is around 70, but we don't decide that. We leave that up to the doctors to make that decision.
And which organs are the most chronically in need of, or where are the most shortages?
The waiting list, the highest demand at this stage is kidneys. The various reasons, but one of the main reasons is lifestyle choices of South Africans. So many people have hypertension or diabetes, they don't go for regular checks, and then they land up having chronic kidney failure and needing a kidney transplant. So that would be the patients who are the highest on the waiting list at the moment. But bearing in mind, those patients can be dialyzed. With other patients who need heart or liver or lungs, if they don't receive their organ in time, they unfortunately die. So the reality is we need all organs across the board.
Well, Samantha, thank you for joining us. Executive Director of the South African Organ Donor Foundation, Samantha Nichols, coming to us live from Cape Town. She says that we can all donate our organs. There's chronic shortages, not just in South Africa or on the continent, but all around the world. Now, I just want to tell you, of course, that we were going to do a crossing to Amnesty International in London around the migrants crisis being faced by Europe, all European countries, hundreds and hundreds of migrants who are drowning in the Mediterranean at the moment. We saw 17 migrants being arrested in the back of a truck yesterday. So it's an issue that's affecting mainland Europe, with many Africans trying to get across, some, of course, from conflict zones such as Libya, and even countries like Tunisia. The European Commission yesterday approved 2.4 billion euros of aid over 6 years for countries, including Greece and Italy, that have struggled to cope with a surge in the number of immigrants. Here are some of the views about this, just to tell you that we are unable to do that interview with Amnesty International today. We'll try and do it a little bit later in the week. Helena Humphrey says, migrants at Calais constitute between 1% and 2% of the total number of arrivals in Italy and Greece in 2015. Yes, we've seen riots in Calais where the migrants claim that they're being treated unfairly. Penguina says, why is the talk always about EU accepting migrants? Do Africa and Asia take their fair share? Don't even get me started on Australia. Well, it's a scenario that the people simply can't travel that far. They're fleeing from conflict zones. IOM Asia Pacific says it's cheaper to care for the health of migrants than to ignore the issue completely, Dr. Pa Kai Hong says. Then Liam Maloney says, Italy has arrested some 900 alleged human traffickers of migrants since the start of 2014. Migrants reaching Italy just in 2015 topped 100,000. Ian Deslow says, amazing that some people are more concerned what Philip Hammond and David Cameron say about migrants than actually coming up with solutions. Yes, Europe's facing massive crisis. Some are saying that, well, the conflicts in Northern Africa are because of oil resources that are now being exported to Europe. So Europe should deal with the fallout or with the migrants that come with the oil. Let's take a look at what's happening on our Newsroom Facebook page today. Human Settlements Minister Lindiwe Sisulu yesterday said more than 5,000 veterans registered on the Department of Military Veterans database should have houses by the end of this financial year. Then, a United Nations spokesperson says its mission to Mali had no reason to believe UN staff should not have frequented the hotel attacked by militants on Friday. At least 13 people died in the attack, and authorities declared a state of emergency in Ferguson, Missouri yesterday to prevent a repeat of the violence that erupted during protests overnight to mark the police shooting of an unarmed black man 1 year ago that ignited a national firestorm on race relations. For more and on that, you can just tap SABC Newsroom in the Facebook search bar. Up will pop our page, like the page, and you'll get all the latest updates on all the stories from all around the world right there. Time for us to take another break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines today. Kusatu says it's not surprised that the South African Rugby Union has rejected claims of a split in the World Cup squad because of alleged racism. This after the Labour Federation said 5 black Springboks had approached it to take up issues such as being sidelined in matches. The Western Cape High Court is expected to hear an application by the City of Cape Town against SANRAL's proposed tolling of parts of the N1 and N2. About 180 kilometres of highway will be tolled should the Winelands Toll Highway project go ahead. The arguments are expected to stretch over a number of days. And in the United States, police in riot gear have clashed with protesters of Ferguson in Missouri this morning. A state of emergency has been declared in the area after protests marking the 1-year anniversary of Michael Brown's fatal shooting turned violent. Well, remember, for more on all of those stories, you can follow us on our Facebook page. Just search for SABC Newsroom on Facebook. You can also, of course, go to Twitter, where you will find us at SABC Newsroom. Well, Gavin, back to you.
Thank you very much, Janine. Well, today we end with some news from our brothers and sisters from Nigeria. A non-profit musical project called the Destiny Child Gospel Music Talent Hunt has allowed talented gospel music ministers an opportunity to showcase their creativity and launch them into a professional career. Now, the winners of the Destiny Child reality gospel show, they're currently here in South Africa to shoot their music videos. 2 in Durban, they say, and 1 in Johannesburg. And joining us today in studio is, well, Destiny Child Gospel Music Talent Hunt producer Uchenna Eshaturi and the winner of Season 2, Jadis. Good morning, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I want to ask you about your first impressions here in South Africa. You've been around a little bit now. Tell us your first impressions.
I think South Africa is a beautiful country. We are very happy to be here. We're excited because we're looking forward to having a lot of collaborations with South Africa. And I think we believe that we're planning on uniting with South Africa, especially after the xenophobic attack. Yeah. We want to be able to collaborate to show the world that Africans are one.
Yes. I want to get back to that shortly, but I want to talk to Jadis about winning the inaugural competition. Tell us about
the second season.
The second season, winning the second season. Tell us about that, and how has it changed your world
Well, winning the second edition of Destiny Child Gospel Music Talent Hunt was like a springboard for me. It was really a wonderful experience. It changed my life totally. So I am not where I used to be. And that's why I'm here in South Africa.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier about xenophobia and this horrific tragedy that took place here in South Africa. How do you think we can build the bridges and mend the fences through your visit and other instances like this?
We believe that South Africa and Nigeria are the giants of Africa. And we believe that we are one and we have to love each other no matter what. And we are here to collaborate with South Africa to show the world that we can achieve greater heights together. And we also want to be able to promote arts and entertainment together. So we're pretty excited to be here, and we hope that we're going to have to do a lot together.
Tell us about the music videos that you are busy shooting here in South Africa. How has that gone?
Well, we're about to shoot the music video. So, and we have some South African directors to do that for us, and it's going to be amazing. Okay, so because we're already having discussion with the directors already, and it's beautiful. It's going to be fine. You're
going to be in Durban, which was kind of the scene of some of the xenophobic attacks. It was real the epicenter of where these this went down. The plan for the music videos is going to incorporate some of this?
Sure, definitely. We're actually planning on meeting with the KwaZulu government, and we're going to have KwaZulu government, and we're going to have a lot of discussions with them. And we're going to be the video is going to actually portray the unity that we are talking about here in Africa, the oneness that we need to build together in Africa.
Tell us about season 1, the first gospel praise party.
That's right.
It attracted massive audience and participants. Tell us about that and how did it go, and then how you got to the second season.
Right. The maiden edition, it was a wonderful experience. Destiny Child happens to be the first gospel music talent hunt in West Africa. And we're pretty excited, and I'd like to give a shout out to my executive producer, Mr. Omax Sharitiri, who happens to be my husband. I'd like to give a big shout out to him for supporting us. You can give him a shout out at home. For supporting the vision, and it was quite an experience with lots of people showing up and so many talents. And it's amazing because one of our major objectives is, to promote, to develop local content, local talent, and give them international exposure. And we had a wonderful time with so many talents that we couldn't even accommodate. So it was a wonderful experience, and then which inspired us to go into the second season. And we are also planning to have a Destiny Child here in South Africa.
Well, that would be incredible because gospel music is so big here in South Africa.
That's right.
Janice, your experience on the show and talk us through your career and the challenges that young people, but even young gospel musicians, face in Nigeria.
Okay, well, we face a lot of challenges, especially in the gospel field. Okay, it's really challenging to want to do gospel and gospel alone, because in the world we are in, most people don't want to really identify with the gospel industry because they believe there's no money in the industry. The industry is just, I don't know. So it's really challenging trying to, when you bring out songs, people don't want to promote it. It's not like South Africa. I think South Africa is doing great with the gospel music. Nigeria is coming up, okay, because this is where we actually started from. Every good singer started from the church, you know. So it's really amazing. I don't know why it's that way, but we are coming up, and I believe we're getting there. So, and then finance, okay, to fund the gospel. Because when Destiny Child started, right, my producer here had a very big challenge, okay, of getting sponsors to sponsor the gospel, this show. Okay, so that's a big challenge for us.
South Africa and Nigeria forever linked, you know, through the ministry, really. You know, we've had this horrific building collapse in Nigeria where so many South Africans died. It was TB Joshua's church.
Right.
Yeah.
The kinds of stigma that comes with what we call these kinds of new faith ministries. How do you view TB Joshua in Nigeria?
Well, I'm honestly not a member of the church. I see the ministry on TV. I hear about TB Joshua. And I believe that the case is in court right now, and we really hope that the church stands for what is right and do the right thing.
Well, Jadis, now, what are you hoping to do and see in South Africa, and what does the future hold for you?
Well, I hope to collaborate with the South Africans. I hope to collaborate with any of the South African gospel artists or any artist, you know, and then I hope to get my video done, okay? Very beautiful video, and
we've got great directors here in South Africa, so you're probably going to have a good time, and you're going to end up with real fantastic products. But your hopes for the visit here in South Africa and the videos that you're going to shoot?
We're hoping to have a lot of fun, and we're hoping to get the best that the industry has to offer. So we're pretty excited, and we're hoping to come back here to show you what we've done.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I can speak to Solomon. He can maybe organize it, and we can play it on.
Great.
We can play it on the show to see what you guys do, because you know it's a very emotive issue for us. Xenophobia, it's a great shock for us.
Yeah,
and we're coming to terms with it. We're dealing with it here in South Africa, and it's wonderful to have you guys
here
in South Africa to come and show us that you know we all get things wrong sometimes, but we have to stand together.
That's right. That's right.
Ladies, thank you for joining us.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for joining us. Jadis and Uchenna, and they are shooting a couple of music videos in South Africa, of course. The Destiny Child Gospel Music Talent Hunt is here in South Africa. You can also go to their website. It's destinychild.com.ng.
Twitter is at Destiny Child T.
Destiny Child T on Twitter.
Destiny Child
there you have it. Should be fantastic videos, and you'll be able to see all the locations here in South Africa. Before we go, of course, St. Louis County declared a state of emergency early yesterday after Ferguson protests turned violent, and 56 people were arrested there during the anniversary of the fatal shooting of Michael Brown. Here are some of the views. Behind enemy lines, says a black officer in Ferguson. In the same situation, kills Mike Brown. No protests, no riot, no issue. That is racism. Deny it if you want, he says. Trevor Grass says, if people are protesting, why wear riot gear? That sends the message you're expecting violence, which in turn raises tensions. Very, very nice one. Drunk Stepmom, really? Says, I've reached a point of exhaustion with police brutality, but it makes it all the more important that we keep fighting. Then, Vote Go Pat, something like that, says, Black Lives Matter. Appeasement is a huge possibility. If there is no concrete proposed action items, a list of thoughts are meaningless. And there you have some of the Black Lives Matter art. It says, Black Lives Matter, Michael Brown, Sarah Bland, and all the rest. That's what's going on in the US. That's where we wrap the show this morning. Newsroom, of course, broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Don't forget, we also stream live on YouTube at that time, with the whole show available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom, and we love it in the morning.